Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. I want to express my gratitude to my friend for many years, Walter, for making me aware of this conference and for getting you, the American Jewish Historical Society, to invite me to make a presentation about the Igbo people. What I'm going to say will be brief, but it will be an introduction of the story of the Igbo people who, as Walter said, are connected to the ancient Israelites. I'll read from a prepared text, and I will approach it very slowly because, as you could see, my accent is not the kind of accent that Americans are used to. But please feel free to draw my attention to anything you don't understand, and I will go over it again. The title of my presentation is The Disappearing of the Hebrews and the Israelites, the Igbo Question. My presentation is about how the Hebrews and the Israelites, who are the Igbo or Igbo people, as they are more commonly called today, who retain the oldest national identity of the Hebrews, Israelites, and Jews, largely disappeared from discourses about Hebrews, Israelites, and Jews. I'm arguing that they disappeared from these discourses about the aforementioned, which are in the domain of Jewish studies, largely because the history of the aforementioned became a subset of what I may call Western history. This led to subordination of the Hebrew or Israelite identities to the Jewish, quote, identity, which in turn became removed from its mother identities and became part of the, quote, white identity. Igbo or Igbo, which are interchangeable, and Hebrew mean the same thing in different languages. Hebrew is the English language translation of Igbo, just as Ibri is the modern Hebrew term or translation for Igbo or Igbo. I will hereafter delve briefly into Igbo history, then culture, so that we can begin to see as humans we can relate with these people who have borne the identity, quote, Hebrew, throughout their existence, which began from Abraham the Hebrew, related with us, and are largely disappeared from discourses about the Hebrews, Israelites, and Jews. We may associate them with the post-colonial state called Nigeria for easy identification, and still for easy recognition, they were the nation that suffered the genocide called Igbo genocide, which occurred within what has been misrepresented as Nigeria-Biafra War. They are one of the largest nations in this continent, quote, or bracket, land area called Africa. During the transatlantic slave trade, they became its greatest victims. Millions of people we see today as African Americans, Caribbeans, Afro-Latinos, Afro-Canadians, and Afro-Europeans were Igbos 400 years ago. The great British abolitionist Olaudah Equiano, who used his writings to correct the European impression that Africans lived on trees before Chinua Achebe did much the same thing, was Igbo. Edward Wilmot Blyden, the greatest African voice for redemption of European Jews from anti-Semitic oppression in the 19th century, was Igbo. As a statesman, the founder of Pan-Africanism, He supported the repossession of Palestine by Jews of Europe. Presently, Igbos are dispersed to all corners of the globe. After the catastrophes which took place between 1966 to 1970 and which led to another Igbo genocide, millions of them began to flee from home. Many of them are in the United States, where on a nation-by-nation basis, they have more people with doctorates than any other ethnicity in the US. If you spot a person that might be of African background, as a shop owner in Shanghai, China, Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, Tokyo, Japan, Tel Aviv, Israel, Dallas, Texas, USA, you are likely looking at an Igbo person. Conquered by Britain, when this modern-day Rome combined with Assyria was raiding nations around the world, they were among the over 290 nations, different nations it seized and converted into its colonial outpost it named Nigeria. Many works which demonstrate that the Igbo are linearly the Hebrews and Israelites of the Bible exist presently. They are the only non-white African group that were mentioned in records about circumcision of males on the 8th day over 200 years ago. This is significant because I think that only the Jews of Sephardic, Ashkenazi, Mizrahi, and the Ethiopian backgrounds would have similar distinctions. Because most people, both at this conference and outside it, are not familiar with what I'm saying, which can be verified very easily, and also because some powerful people in controlling religion, academia, and the media do not want what I am saying to become part of history due to their baseless fear that their power will be threatened. I will still refresh a few things I have published and published on. I have written 21 books on these and related matters. Majority of them are on Amazon. Igbo DNA matches with DNA of ethnic groups who are contemporary Middle Easterners. With this genetic evidence, what this genetic evidence says is that in the dim past, Igbos lived and shared blood with populations in the Levant, Middle East, which is believed with solid evidence to be where Hebrew and Israelite culture first separated from human culture. By the way, anti-Semitism which torments Igbos come in many ways, and the Igbo experience lends us a resource to use to fight this scourge which gave humanity the Holocaust and the Igbo genocide. The following story is instructive. A Christian organization which describes itself as Messianic Jewish, based in North America, fabricated a false DNA report and alleged it was a report of a test which shows that Igbos were not related to the Israelites. This was false and anti-Semitic on every count. No one has found genetic materials from ancient Israelites, so no comparison with their DNA could have happened. Also, from available research, a DNA sequence unique and specific to any particular group has not yet been found and may never be found. After the sequence was once touted as Kohanim gene was seen in many Middle Eastern populations that were not Israelite or Jewish, people realized that the conclusion that this or that gene belonged to this or that nation was reached rather hastily. I do not think that such a gene would exist because of the simple reason that every human is mixed. I'm 100% Igbo. No intermarriage has occurred in the Igbo part of my family history, but deeper analysis of my DNA reveals that I have distant cousins in Latvia. I'm wondering if this was why I was very much agitated by Putin's invasion of Ukraine and the human suffering that reminded me again about Igbo suffering. However, anti-Semites use everything to try to hurt their victims, so DNA as a tool for determining ancestry came in handy to hurt Igbos. It is difficult for any rational and objective person to believe that the group did not try to create confusion around Igbo identity because of anti-Semitic hatred. Anti-Semitism doesn't stalk Igbos less than Jews, but because Igbos were disappeared from history, which rendered them invisible, until recently, when I published a book about Igbophobia and anti-Semitism, only few cared to look carefully at the nature of anti-Igbo hatred. And because the world does not see Igbos or care about their afflictions, the Igbos too do not see the scourge for what it is, an existential threat. I have written and published many times that Omenana, which is the Igbo language term for culture and religion, and which in English language means culture or religion you shall do in the land, is the only descriptive that comes near to a name for the Israelite culture and religion that we find in the Hebrew Bible, Old Testament. I'm only repeating it because it is new information to most people, and this includes Igbo people. You can confirm this for yourself by reading Deuteronomy 6:1 in Igbo and Hebrew languages. I also don't want to bore you by repeating what I have published 21 books on. Igbos retain daily Hebrew and Israelite traditions and customs in Omenana more than any other group which claims Israelite origins, just as Igbos also retain the identity Hebrew as a national name. Very importantly, because there are still at least 50 million persons who say they are Igbos, there are more people who identify with the Israelites among the Igbos than among other groups who identify as descendants of Israelites, and Judaism is growing faster among Igbos than among other groups anywhere in the world, and if you ask me, it is a natural development from the indigenously developed Sabbath religion, which mischievous members of the media call Messianic. I don't think we need to bore one another again by stating that many Jewish experiences are paralleled by Igbo experiences. The Holocaust has a sister, the Igbo genocide. Jewish contribution to Hollywood is paralleled with Igbo's contribution to Nollywood, which in 30 years, Igbos took from nothing to number 3 in the world after Hollywood and Bollywood. By the way, Indian Jews contributed so much to the rise of Bollywood. You may look at my short video which I made in Hollywood and Riverside, and which was about Hollywood, Bollywood, Nollywood, and their connections to groups that claim Israelite descent. Jews built the startup nation in Israel, and Igbos gave the world the largest business incubator platform, with Igbo Eba Odibo, which is very clearly identifiable in the Hebrew Bible. This call for a change in how we study the Hebrews, Israelites, and Jews in general, and those of them we know today as Igbos in particular. We have to stop assuming that descendants of Hebrews and Israelites have certain features that are like features of contemporary Europeans and contemporary Middle Easterners. We also need to get over the belief that we already know everything about the groups in discussion. It is also important that we pay attention to the following. Igbos are not African Jews, not black Jews, not lost tribes, not lost Jews, not Jews of color. As the most published scholar on this subject, I say, American Jewish Historical Society, fellow scholars, and media people present, Igbo experiences do not reflect any of the aforementioned identities. Igbos are Igbos or Igbos, and these mean Hebrews. There are stirrings of progress. Professor Michael Alexander, a professor of religious and Jewish studies at the University of California, Riverside, is at the head of a team engaged in a monumental work that intersects with Jewish, Igbo, and other areas of study. Dr. Daniel Lees, a Swiss-Israeli anthropologist, based his doctoral work on Igbo studies. Michael Levine, an Israelite of Ashkenazi Jewish background and who has some Sephardi ancestry, is working to get his synagogue to start learning about Igbo culture and history. Dr. Walter Isaac, who is here, has written that Igbos suffer not just from racism, but also from anti-Semitism. Last month, Ira Goberman of the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy asked me to expand the paper I presented at their 2022 symposium. I accepted. AJHS, American Jewish Historical Society, I recommend that you take the same step. Get this presentation published. Lastly, I'm sure you already know that a Sephardic Jewish Bedin, rabbinical court, gave a ruling that Igbos are linear descendants of the Israelites after it had critically surveyed Igbo culture and history. The following rabbis, Dayan Yehonatan Elazar Mota, PhD, Diane Jacob de Oliveira, Diane Eliezer Tabor, Rabbi Hananiah Cohen, and Rabbi Haim Ovadiah sat on this court. And on this note, I say thank you to the conveners and to Professor Isaac, who introduced me to you, and I yield. Thank you.